Hello, hello, and you're with us. Hello, beautiful. I just saw that you joined the Three C's community. Welcome, darling. I'm so thrilled. So
You?
thrilled. All right, beautifuls. I think we are dreaming. Let me just double check. I think so. It looks like that's coming in. Yes, it is. Beautiful. Beautiful. So welcome back. A bonus call for Wednesday afternoon, day 3. And this afternoon, in just a little bit, about 2:15, we're going to have Wendy Rosenfeldt with us to talk about transcendental meditation and quantum physics. Quantum physics is something that fascinates me, and she promises that it's going to be super relevant to what we're talking about. And I want to talk a little bit about meditation and the role that meditation has played in me becoming who I am today. And I'm just trying to think where the best spot is to start this conversation. This morning we talked about values, and I feel like that is just such a pivotal conversation. So I'm hoping that if you didn't catch it yet, you definitely make time to go back and watch that conversation. It's interesting, as I today unfolded, I had a private client that I spoke to just before this call, and she lost her husband. She has 4 children. She lost her husband in June, and we'd worked together for a year previously. And now she's facing a whole new chapter in her life. And the tools and resources and work that we did in vision building in 2019 have really supported her through this process. And there's so many mindsets and different tools and techniques that I teach, but they aren't things that come, none of them are complicated, none of them are truly difficult, but it is that process of doing something on repeat. It is doing something in repetition, and it is having somebody that keeps reminding you of the different things that we need to do. It brought to mind a 21-day challenge that I did last year, I think it was, called Stronger, Healthier, Happier. And that program, this ties into taking back control of our focus, taking back control of where we're heading in our lives, being the most authentic and highest expression of who we want to be as women. During the lockdown period, there's been 2 times in my life where I feel like I have really hit a rock bottom. I've actually hit a spot twice in my life where I really didn't want to wake up the next day. It wasn't a suicidal feeling, but it was a I just don't want to do this anymore feeling. And I don't know if anyone else relates, but I'm kind of guessing that I'm not the only one, and it's actually more common than perhaps we would believe. The reason I'm sharing this was there were 3 things that I did. What happened was I got very caught up in the doom and the fear and the worry around what was happening with COVID. And in alignment with my values, which carries on from this morning's conversation, I didn't feel happy about having the vaccine. Now, it wasn't a conversation that was a judgment for anybody else. It wasn't something that was anybody, in my estimation, is a very personal decision to inject something into your body. Now, I don't need to go into the reasons why, but being in the situation where there was a lot of pressure from huge numbers of people, and to do something that felt very out of alignment with my values was very challenging. Now you can take that example, and this exact example may resonate with you, or there may be a different example in your life where the world around you, the people around you are pushing you, pulling you in a direction that feels out of alignment with who you want to be. It might be in your workplace that you're being encouraged to do things that feel out of integrity with your values. It may be within your family. It may be extended family. It can be friends that are making choices to do things that feel out of integrity with the choices that you want to make. So I got in this very dark hole and I started, the doom scrolling, looking at everything that was going wrong in the world, all the decisions that were being made that I felt were very, very challenging, the sadness, the struggle, the fear, the lack of personal control, so many things. And I got in a very, very dark spot. It was a really, really challenging. And I can remember talking to girlfriends, and we decided at that point that we were going to take the phrase, I'm okay, out of our, I'm doing okay, I'm fine. That was it, I'm fine. We banned I'm fine from our vocabulary. There was no more saying I'm fine, because I'm fine can be, I'm thinking about putting my head in the oven, but I actually haven't done it yet. Or I'm fine can be, life is absolutely grosy. It actually doesn't tell us anything. So we developed a language between us that involved a little bit more emotional intelligence, and it involved that authentic, clear communication to support each other. The power of our words, the language that we use, is enormous. So then I set about going, this is not where I need to be. This is not the woman I want to be. I am not the person that focuses on the fear and everything that can go wrong. It doesn't serve. I've been there before when my first husband walked away and I had 4 children under 8. And I spent a huge amount of time in grief and fear and being scared to death of every decision I made, outsourcing things because I wanted everybody else to be the expert in my life because I was too scared to make a decision for myself. I've been there. And I believe we all have at some point. So I decided that I was going to shift things. And one of the biggest things that I did, there were 3 things that I want to talk you through. 3 things that I did that made an enormous difference. The first one was meditating. I had been aware of meditation as a tool, as a really powerful thing to do for a long time, for years. And I'd always felt like, I haven't got time to sit for half an hour. Who's got time? It felt indulgent. It felt like I didn't have time. It felt like I could be doing something better. There's always something else that needs to be done. It's hard to see the results immediately of meditation. And then add to that the idea of being in my own head, the idea of trying to still my mind. Keep in mind, my nervous system at this point was wound up like a spring, tightly coiled spring. So the idea of meditating, it didn't feel like a great, easy decision. Why can't it be easy to sit still and just breathe and be still? It was hard. But I knew there was an intuition. It was this gut voice, the taps from the universe, the thing that just keeps coming up. And it's like, this is something you're supposed to be doing. This is something you're supposed to be doing. So I surrendered. I surrendered to the process. I got myself a coach. It was actually Gabby Bernstein at the time. She just was the person that came into my awareness. And I made the commitment to start meditating every day. And it was not an immediate fix. It took time. But I noticed straight away that there was a gentle, calming effect on my nervous system. I started to shift the way I was feeling. So that was meditation. Combined with the meditation, there were 2 other things that made the world of difference. The first one was managing my mind. I spoke this morning about what you focus on expands. The more I focused on everything that was going on wrong in the world, the more I focused on everything I had to worry about, the more I focused on the worry around my children, the worry around my husband not being able to work, the worry around money, the worry around the world. I had clients across the world. I had clients in America who were going through the Black Lives Matter, everything that was blowing up there. There was so much. There was so much evidence that I had to feel really scared and worried about what was going on in the world, but it wasn't serving anybody, least of all me, to be so focused on it. So I decided to shift my focus. I took all social media off my phone. I have to have it because it's part of my business. But there was no more scrolling. There was no more looking at statistics. There was no more focusing on everything that was going wrong. I haven't watched the news for years. There was a moment during that COVID that I started, looking at the latest numbers and so on. And that was like, that goes off again. And with my girlfriends, we decided to start changing the conversation, focusing what we were focusing on, what we were thinking about. And I became the person in charge of what was going into my brain. So I was meditating, I was managing my mind, and I was moving my body. So during that time, the worse I feel, was it yesterday we talked about that? The worse you feel, the worse you treat yourself. So I stopped exercising, I stopped moving, I stopped going out, like we were just in this lockdown bubble. We didn't need to be quite so locked down where we were. We've got access to beautiful places to walk and so on. I was very triggered by people in masks, so I didn't want to be out. I didn't want to see it. This is my stuff. I'm sharing this with you because you can relate it to things that are going on in your life, things that trigger you, things that you don't want to see. So I decided that I needed to move. I needed to get out. I needed to move my body, get out of my head and move my body. So I started walking again, and I started looking around me at the beauty, the majesty. And yes, I don't use the word majesty lightly. The majesty, the awe of the natural world. When you look at a tree and see the leaves, the individual leaves, and you think about those leaves from a bud growing, the branches growing. There's trees that are 100 years old or 6 months old. And the awe of a sunrise. There is a word that I came across not so long ago that is plentitude, when all else fades away. It's when your cup is full. It is the experience of seeing a sunrise. In that moment when it's just that, and everything else fades away. When you see a newborn baby, and it's like that. For those of you like me that just have this thing about smelling, the smell of a newborn baby or the smell of a horse. Oh, it's been too long since I've stuck my nose into the neck of a horse, that warm, earthy smell. So I was meditating every day, guided meditations. There's, find something that works for you. I was managing my mind. I was choosing. I was being the guardian of my mind, is how I thought about it. I get to choose. I get to choose what comes in here. I'm in charge of this. Managing my mind and shifting what I was focusing on. Looking at all there is, the beauty in the world, all that we have to be grateful for. My gratitude practice that some of you have done with me. I did a little workshop on this a few weeks ago that is available on my website now. About enriching your life. There's a practice of gratitude and moving my body. So this program is a 21, I ended up teaching what I learned. It's a program that's available now on my website. If that's something that you want to do, it's 21 days, just a little bit every day. And there's certainly women in here that were with me the first time I did that, and have done it again since. It is a beautiful, super simple step by step by step process of using this. And I've just noticed that Wendy's hopped on. I'm so excited to learn about transcendental meditation. Even though I've been doing meditation for a little while now, I am no expert. I wouldn't, I know one sort of way of doing it, just the guided meditations that I do. So I'm very excited to learn about different forms of meditation. Did Erin touched on it a little bit this morning, but there is so much evidence now. There is so much irrefutable evidence now that we can look at to support the understanding that our thoughts affect our biology. It is through our thoughts that we are shaping our biology. And so we get to be the guardians of our minds. We get to pour into our minds, our souls, our hearts, what supports us to truly thrive. Because that's the mission we're on. The whole mission inside this particular series, it's the reconnection revolution. It is reconnecting to the most authentic, highest expression of who you are here to be. And if you're not connected to that internal wisdom, the wise voice within you that is wiser than the one in your head, then there's this piece missing. So I would love to introduce you to Wendy. I think you're there. Hi, Wendy. Thank you so much for being with us. Do you know, I have to confess that I made an absolute mess of things with Wendy, and she's been so gracious to be with us this afternoon, because we were organized for yesterday afternoon and I wrote down the wrong day. So thank you for your flexibility and for being with us, Wendy.
That's fine. It's just as easy to do it today as it was yesterday, so there's no problem with that at all.
So, Wendy, I have let everyone know that we're going to touch on quantum physics and transcendental meditation today. But before we go there, I would love you to take a little moment to let us know who you are and how you came to be doing the work that you are now.
Great. Well, look, I actually learnt transcendental meditation just over 30 years ago. And I was just looking for something more spiritual, I think. And, things are often meant to be. I ended up doing like a house cleaning, child minding, gardening job for a couple who were TM teachers. I was halfway through a uni degree. And when they told me about transcendental meditation, I thought, yeah, that's what I'm looking for. So I learnt back then and have done it ever since. And I've been teaching now for about 22 years.
Wow. Yeah, right. You've done your 10,000 hours, isn't it? The 10,000.
Oh, I don't know. Look, it just gets better over time. Yeah. And I always emphasize that when people, interested in learning meditation, because sometimes people think, oh, meditation's difficult, or, it's something you've got to be disciplined to do. After a very short time, you just want to do it.
Yep.
You feel so deeply relaxed during it, and you feel better afterwards that you don't think twice about it.
Yeah.
It becomes part of your day.
Yeah, it's like a beautiful treat. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So tell us, what is transcendental meditation? What's the difference?
Okay, I guess the difference is the word transcendental, because if you look up the definition of meditation, it means to think. And people often talk about, I meditate on something. So the transcendental part is really the key difference, because we transcend the surface, busy, active thinking mind. Now, you may have heard the term, most people only use 5 to 10% of their mental abilities. And what that's referring to is the conscious thinking mind. So, generally, most meditations, you're either visualizing something or focusing on something or trying not to think. Yeah. You're activating that 5 to 10%. Transcendental meditation involves transcending or going beyond that surface mind to connect to all levels of the mind. And just in a very simple way, we have a mantra, which is a sound of whose effects are known. There's no meaning attached to it. It's a soothing sound that has a life-supporting vibrational effect to the mind at every level of the mind.
Yeah.
But ultimately, the mantra in TM is just the vehicle to take the mind in. And actually, we let go of the mantra altogether and experience a state of being, which is beyond thinking. So when you first experience it, it feels like a gap. You think, oh, did I go to sleep, or where was I? Or it's kind of very abstract and hard to grasp, because when you're in it, you're not thinking, I am in this state, or I'm not thinking. It's like a being, a state of being. But when you come out of meditation, you more and more and more carry that connectedness around with you.
So is that when you first wake up, your brain's in beta mode? Is that the same thing? Or
No, it's different. I mean, looking at EEG readings, the brain actually gets more activated in a way that all the areas of the brain start to communicate with all the other areas. So it's different from sleeping. It's different from just relaxation. Research shows also the prefrontal cortex gets strengthened during the practice of TM and stays with you afterwards. And that's one of the things that people notice. They don't go into impulsive behaviour or fight and flight, and just maintain a sense of inner calm and coherence, because the brain's always more connected than it is at any other time.
Right.
And the more you meditate, the more the brain coherence is enhanced. So you look at studies of people doing it 10, 20 years, incredible brain coherence, more than you see in any other state, and beyond what people are naturally born with, because there's a lot of research showing that people who excel in their fields, whether they're a top musician or top athlete or even a CEO of a big company, they naturally have higher levels of brain coherence than the average person.
Yeah.
And then you look at TM people and they have double that.
Oh.
After doing it for a while, for a few years, but it really enhances the brain coherence. So very different to just a relaxation exercise.
Yeah, right. So is this based in, was it a Buddhist practice, or where did it come from?
It comes from the Vedic tradition. So originally from India.
Yeah.
It's been around for thousands and thousands of years.
Yeah.
And all the teachers in that tradition were enlightened or self-realized. So they had the ability to access all levels of the mind.
Yeah.
So you think most people use 5 to 10%, they used 100%. And so as TM teachers, we teach it in exactly the same way, the same traditional way, and that safeguards the knowledge. So, all the TM teachers are not in that same enlightened state that these, rishis or self-realized teachers were in, but you actually get the same technique that has been taught over the thousands of years. So it's as effective as if they were teaching you. And that's why we follow the same guidelines. We do a little ceremony of gratitude on the first day to align ourselves with this tradition.
Yeah, right. I'm fascinated. So, okay, so that's the main difference.
Yeah, and just to add to that, the body goes into a state of rest deeper than deep sleep.
Okay.
So they measure oxygen consumption, and it's double, or it's half that of what we get when we sleep. So a much deeper state of rest. And that's incredibly rejuvenating and repairing when there's hundreds and hundreds of studies documenting the benefits of health. So it's not just a mental technique, it's very much a physical, you can say spiritual technique as well.
So that's where the healing comes in, because being awake, this is going back to my years ago, my naturopathic training, but being awake is catabolic. So when we exercise, when we're moving, when we're digesting, everything's breaking down. And then sleep is anabolic. So we're rebuilding during sleep. So this is an anabolic practice as well.
Yeah. And then again, research shows that it slows down the aging process. People appear biologically younger, and they measure things like heart health, memory, brain health, all these sorts of things, because we're getting a deeper rest than we do during sleep. But actually it resets how deeply we sleep at night. And people often notice this. People that don't sleep well find their sleep improves, because instead of getting wound up in that sort of overdrive, they've dropped into a deep state of relaxation for their 20 minutes twice a day. So it gives a different habit to the body. Okay, I can relax. And also we release a lot of the build-up of stress and tension that normally would be why we can't fall asleep, or what wakes us up at 2 a.m. worrying about things. So yeah, the restfulness actually carries over into day-to-day activity, but we call it in TM to say restful alertness. So it's not a dull state. The body's deeply resting, but the mind's more expanded.
Yeah, okay. So is transcendental when they do sort of that the om, the chant?
No.
That's different.
No, it's interesting too with mantras, because the mantras all have a certain effect. And when you learn TM, you're given a mantra that's suitable for you, which is decided by doing a little interview with the teacher when you come and learn. Om, which is a mantra which is used universally, is a recluse mantra. So that has a subtle effect of making you withdraw from life. So if you want to be out in the world, be in relationships, be successful in life, Om is not the best mantra.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah, but that's, I guess, also going back to the idea of teaching in a tradition. All the knowledge is there, so it's not open to people kind of randomly picking bits and pieces and perhaps not having the full knowledge when they teach a technique. And that mantra is a classic example of that, you know.
Yeah, I'm glad I asked the question.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is something that really needs to be learnt with a teacher. It's not something that you can. Okay.
Yeah. So you learn over 4 consecutive days. It's about an hour to an hour and a half each day.
Okay.
The first session's always one-on-one, individual, and the following days can be done individually or in a small group. And then there's a lifetime of follow-up. So there's a very consistent follow-up program when you first learn. You come back after 10 days, then you come back once a month for an individual session for the first 4 months. And then it's whenever you need. I mean, I've seen people, I haven't even taught, but, you know, they learnt 20, 30 years ago. So, you know, because your consciousness changes and expands, because we have different experiences, it's really important to be able to come back and ask questions and checking anything. And also you can meditate in a group. We've got a daily group meditation on Zoom that people from all over Australia connect with, or some people just do it in their own time.
Yep.
So you can be very self-sufficient with it, but you're given a lifetime of support and follow-up, and that carries over even if you moved interstate or overseas. We have TM teachers and TM centres all around the world.
Okay. Oh, I'm fascinated. So how does it relate to quantum physics?
Yeah, no, that's a really interesting question. So just to give a bit of understanding of quantum physics, you know, I guess we can kind of trace it back to Einstein. Einstein believed that if you went to more and more subtle levels of life, eventually you will find that everything's connected. Everything comes from the same source. So scientists have done that. They've gone beyond the macrocosmic world, beyond the molecular level, beyond the atomic level. And they found at the subatomic level, everything just behaves like fluctuations of particles, waves of energy.
Yeah.
You know, more recent theories describe everything as being like superstrings.
Yep.
Everything is just vibrations. And, you know, what's been understood in the Vedic tradition, and it was always known actually, was that that's consciousness. Everything comes from consciousness. Everything is connected. And so scientists have now discovered, okay, there's a field that they call the unified field, which is the vibrational state of everything. Now, that's where we go when we transcend completely, when we go beyond awareness of our surroundings and our body and eventually of thought. The mind drops down and experiences that vibrational state. As I was saying before, it's almost like a bit of a gap or a blank, especially when you first have it. But you're connecting to that level of unity with everything else in the universe. And then when you come out, you carry that with you. So it's a really practical technique, because I don't know what everyone knows about quantum physics, but people often take the theories that relate to quantum physics and try and apply them to life without having a technique. And that's where it gets confusing, because some of the theories that come from quantum physics say that an object can appear in 2 places at once.
Yeah.
Thought is the most powerful form of energy. But, you know, you don't see many people manipulating the universe with their thoughts. And that's because they're operating at the macrocosmic level. If you're operating on the 5 to 10% of the surface mind, you're not accessing the quantum field. So you have to go to that level for these theories to actually make sense. Now, the more you're operating from that level of the unified field, the more you experience everything else in the universe is just an aspect of the self. So you can develop a relationship between the individual and the universe that's as intimate between the mind and body. So we have thoughts and we move our body around. That's a very intimate relationship. In a state of self-realization, or even getting close to that, you have a thought and the universe responds. Or look at it the other way, you're in tune with the universe. And actually at that level, it's all the same. There's no difference between the individual desire and the universe. So that's why I say it's a really practical quantum technique, and it makes sense of all this kind of, I guess people get confused by quantum physics, because how can you live quantum physics in day-to-day life? Well, it's hard if you're just on the surface, but if you're operating from that quantum level, then you can do almost anything. And I'll give you another example of, again, I'm not sure how much people know about quantum physics, but you may have heard of the idea of collapsing the wave function, or everything's just probabilities. So quantum physics understands that instead of everything being separate and solid and always appearing in one place, actually there's possibilities of that computer that you're looking at appearing in any other place. But when you actually look at it, it has to collapse down and appear in one place. And they talk about the collapse of the wave functioning. So there's this thing coming into science that actually is involving the observer. Whereas, science generally resisted that. Everything had to be objective. But actually you can't, that doesn't work. If you haven't got an observer, then does that even exist? And there's if you go into decoherence, and there's a whole range, that's probably going a bit out of the scope of this talk, but everything is always observing everything at the same time. And that's why things do tend to appear in the same place. But you have to have the observer involved in that. Now, when you're operating from these very, very subtle levels, there's more ability to actually create, or create's probably a good word, things that maybe are not so possible normally. But when you're operating from that level, then anything can happen. And that's, Maharishi, who's the one that brought TM out to the West, talked about it's a sea of all possibilities. And that's what quantum physics says. But then, as I said before, without having some technology to experience it, we can't live it on a practical level. We can talk about it, but it remains kind of a concept.
I feel like it is, for the vast majority of us, it feels like a very sci-fi movie kind of concept. But I know that I've had so many, I talk about taps from the universe, like there's something here, there's something here. I've been studying for the last few months, studying gene keys with Richard Rudd. I don't know if you've come across that. But he, there's all these different pieces in my very, very simplistic brain. The way that I remember it was my first introduction to physics and understanding physics and how we're vibration is that when you touch your fingers together, they're not really touching. Or just the things that you remember from school physics. And that fascinated me. And then, like thinking about changing our vibration. And over the years, I've come across different techniques where if you physically do this, you can feel your vibration rise. For anyone that's watching it, do it. It's, like it feels like something that's so woo-woo or weird, but you can literally raise your vibration just by doing that movement, and similarly feel it. You can lower it just by doing that. So there's all these kind of simple things that we can do. We know we raise our vibration by listening to particular music, watching scary movies, your vibration goes down, you kind of contract. So we do have evidence of it in our life, but just through what you're talking about, we're expanding it into a whole new kind of realm of possibilities.
Yeah, on a really consistent basis, because people have had all sorts of experiences in many different cultures and traditions. People can levitate and do all sorts of things, but they don't necessarily have a consistent way of getting back there, or they haven't got a way of teaching it to other people. There have been some really amazing spiritual teachers, but they may not have been able to teach their students. Whereas I think that was the real key with what Maharishi Mahesh Yogi's done with TM. Is he's made it really systematic, scientifically verifiable. It applies to anyone. We've all got a nervous system. And part of the process of TM actually is cleaning out the stress and fatigue, because you can't maintain these heightened states when there's a lot of stress and fatigue in the body. And just like you were saying then, the effects of things, if you go around watching a lot of violent movies and lowering your vibration, that's all sitting there in the nervous system. When you meditate, you can clean that out. But, it's also useful not to add a whole lot of stress in, because then you'll move through all of this much faster.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And this is, before you came on, I was talking about managing our minds and turning off the news and all the things that just completely contract our, wind our nervous systems up and make us so stressed. Yeah, I'm fascinated. I'm definitely keen to learn it. I'm excited. So I know that you have something for our audience if they're interested to learn more. Can you tell us a little bit what that is?
Yeah, look, if people are interested, because it's taught in this in-person way with one-on-one instruction, I can't teach you how to meditate in this environment, but you can just go to the TM website and sign up for a Zoom information session. So they're offered by all the TM teachers. And that's a really good way to get an understanding of what the scope of TM is, how it's taught, how you might learn. You get a chance to meet your TM teacher. We do them in person as well, but we do a lot on Zoom. You can meet them, and then you sign up for a course, and then you have that ongoing follow-up and support.
Yeah. For people that want to connect with you, you're in Queensland, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm in Queensland. I'm in Maleny. I also teach in Brisbane. And I do travel interstate a little bit too with more advanced courses too. But yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I'm sold. I'm absolutely fascinated. And I just know, like there's been all these kind of slow progressions in the things that I've learned and an understanding of all this. And this feels like a fantastic next step. I'm very excited.
Yeah, great. And I don't know if I got time to talk about the world peace effect.
Please do.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is something that has come about in the last few months. So the leader of the organisation, Dr. Tony Nader, who's a neuroscientist and medical doctor, following Maharshi's guidance, actually wanted to set up a different world, basically. Maharshi always wanted to create world peace.
Yep.
And the most powerful way of doing that is enlivening this experience of unity, first in the individual, but also then that carries over to the collective consciousness. And as we know, we're all connected at that vibrational level. So when Maharshi first started teaching TM, way back in the 60s, 50s and 60s even, he predicted that if you got 1% of the population doing TM, that it would change the quality of the collective consciousness. And this was measured by having groups doing this, crime rate would go down, there'd be less accidents, less hospitalizations, stock market would go up, all the things that kind of indicated positivity would go up and things that indicated negativity would go down. And then with the advanced programs, it was found you only need the square root of 1% of the population doing this technique. And it has been done many times. I mean, even around the time the Berlin Wall came down, they had a really big group. They had about the 1% effect for the world. So many things that people thought, how on earth are these things going to be resolved? How will this conflict be resolved? And I would say we're in exactly the same situation now with so many areas of life and complications and conflict. So Dr. Tony Nader has the goal to get 10,000 people together during the advanced TM course at the end of this year, so from December to early January. And 10,000 people is the square root of the world's population at the moment. So we're still in the logistical stages of actually finding somewhere that can accommodate and look after 10,000 people, but it will happen. So that's the plan. So it would be really interesting. Just look out for what happens around that time. I really predict that there'll be huge changes. And it comes from consciousness, because when we have stress, consciousness, when people, I guess coming from stress consciousness, thinking we haven't got enough and being greedy and making decisions that destroy the environment because we want financial gain. There's only so much people can do. You've got to change the collective consciousness. And that's the idea. And, having had some experience of being in environments where you're meditating with thousands of people, you almost can't have a negative thought. And you do start to feel, everyone is just connected with me. And the great thing about this technique is it goes beyond the people meditating. People nearby actually feel it. And they've even measured serotonin levels in people nearby these big groups. And the serotonin levels have gone up in people who weren't even meditating. They were just nearby. But actually, if you get 10,000 people, that will affect the whole world without having to be, in close proximity. So
10,000 people in one group is the goal. But then surely if there's all the people that can't physically be there, other people doing it as well, it just gets to be a bigger and bigger effect.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And that's it. If everyone's meditating every day, everyone's contributing towards a better collective consciousness.
Yep. Love it.
Yeah. But again, it's great. You can actually explain it through quantum physics, because I think when this first came out and Maharshi was talking about it back then, and it got presented to the government, there was a experiment done in Washington in 1993 where they got the effect. They had the group there, and a quantum physicist went to the police force in advance and said, we had a technique, and the byproduct is it will lower the crime rate. What do we have to lower it by for it to be significant? And they said 20%, but you'll never get that. You come in the middle of summer, you got a blizzard, maybe you get that effect. Anyway, the crime rate dropped by 23% just when they had this big group of people there meditating. And because they're all volunteers and they had to go back to their homes and their lives and their jobs, the crime rate gradually crept back up.
Yep.
But it was very statistically significant. It was less than 2 in a billion chance that it was a coincidence. So it's been shown, but again, the government, Maharshi always said, the government is just the innocent mirror of the collective consciousness. They can't take on kind of radical new ideas if the collective consciousness aren't ready. And I would say anyway, they're probably not, leading the force in that sense anyway. But that's why Maharshi would always say, you've got to change the consciousness, and then you'll get the government you deserve, or you'll get people. All the ideas are there. I mean, there are so many great ideas to help the world. But
yeah, absolutely. What a fabulous conversation. Thank you so much, Wendy.
That's okay. No, it's been a real pleasure. So thank you for having me on the show. And it's been great to chat.
Thank you. I'll put a link to that Zoom. I think you gave it to me in your form, so I'll pop it in the email and send it out so everyone has it. And I'm sure if anyone's got any questions, it's so easy to find us all now on social media or whatever.
Yeah, looking at the website for TMs is tm.org.au.
Easy.
That's Transcendental Meditation, TM.
Lovely. Thank you so much.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Wendy.
Bye.
All right, beautiful souls. I will see you again tomorrow, Thursday. No, we're doing a 1:00 tomorrow with the gorgeous Andrea Robinson. That's going to be so fun. All right, we'll see you then. Lots of love and bye for now.